This is Maintenance and Manufacturing Insights, hosted by Martin Engster, bringing you straight conversations with the people keeping machines running and production moving.
Well, hey, we're here today with Jamie Brett from Carbon Aerospace. Is that how you say it? Carbon or Carbon?
It's Carbon, yeah. It's kind of just a little play on letters. We build mostly everything's carbon fiber, so they put the Q in front, kind of stands for quality. So it's that's kind of just play on words.
Heck yeah! You know what? I
Carbon
like
Aerospace.
that. That's pretty simple and easy, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's cool. So, give me a quick rundown of your role and what your basically day to day is at Carbon Aerospace.
Sure will. Again, my name's Jamie Brett. I've been with the company here. We're in Millersville, Georgia, about 90 miles southeast of Atlanta. Carbon Aerospace, we build composite aerostructures, so carbon fiber aerostructures for a number of different customers. I've been with the company off and on. I say off and on. I've been there 30 years. I had a 3-year stint at one of the business jet manufacturers here in Georgia. Came back here about 3 years ago, but I've been here in Millersville. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears here in this factory. But I'm the facilities senior manager. I've got responsibility for facilities as well as tooling and composite repair. Primarily, I spend most of my time on the facility side. So basically, if you drive through the gate and you see it, I own it. So I have to take care of it, from grounds maintenance, building maintenance, equipment maintenance, all those things associated with the building. So that's really what my day to day is. Got a really good team in place that helps me do that. So it's not all on me, but we certainly got a lot to do.
I don't doubt it. So, with that being said, I mean, how big is your facility? I mean, how many machines you guys are running?
The facility's around roughly 650,000 square feet. That's included in manufacturing space, office space, some warehouse space here on site. So it's about 650,000. We've got roughly 400 employees, around 405 employees here in Millersville. We run 3 shifts. Primarily, the biggest bulk is on day shift. The off shifts, which is second, third shift, are a little smaller. We've got some critical, processes going on at those times. So, just a few of those on the off shifts. So, we've got roughly 1,200 assets that I control and maintain here at the site. Those are active. We use a computerized maintenance management system to do that. If you didn't, almost have to have that to maintain this stuff. It's just so many. It'd be overwhelming if you didn't. So
All right.
we track those from non-critical assets to critical assets, things like that. So we're able to, to break those down, into categories so we, can prioritize work, and do things in the right order, doing them at the right time and making sure they're getting done on time.
Okay. So you said 1,200 units?
Roughly.
Roughly.
Just
So those are all your machines, like your CNC machines and all that.
When I say that, it's a little bit deceiving when I say that, because we've got assets that are written against different pieces of equipment. But golly, hold on, Martin, I'm having some trouble here. There we go. And we've got essentially 54 roughly critical assets, and then we've got a lot of support equipment, so air compressors, vacuum pumps,
Yeah, right.
all
Okay.
those type things
Right.
across the facility. And in our asset database, everything that we would potentially work on is listed as an asset. So, like I said, you got all the restrooms. I've got 50 some odd overhead cranes. All those start to add up, right? When you start start getting them. Support equipment, from band saws to drill presses, all those small things. We put them in the system because we have to maintain them.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Maintenance is part of it. Part of
right.
everything.
Yep,
I mean,
that's
yeah.
right.
If you don't take care of it, it's going to be just like everything else. It's going to fall apart and break.
That's exactly right. If
Yep,
you don't do
yep.
maintenance on it, it's going to tell you. If you don't schedule it, it's going to schedule itself.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. No kidding. Absolutely. And then quick, fast, and in a hurry. Right.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So, yeah. All right. So 54 machines is what we're roughly, right? Is what you were saying?
Yep, roughly. And just to give you a little bit of background on kind of, I don't know how much you know about the composite process, but we basically take carbon fiber raw material. It comes in and goes to into a bulk freezer, and it stays there until until we get ready to start processing that. And it goes from a raw material to a finished aerostructure, which may include assembly and paint going through our factory before it's shipped. So there's a lot of processes and there's a lot of equipment associated with that. And generally speaking, our critical assets are part of that process of building the part. It's kind of where that 50 number comes from. It's a little less than that. We've got a few checks that we do that are added into that critical number, but it's close to 50 as far as how many critical assets we have that we maintain.
You said that it's from start to finish, from actually just manufacturing to part to adding whatever other parts to it, mechanisms, whatever you want to call them, all the way to even painting. Yeah, I mean,
yes.
At the end, you got the whole daggum wing.
Yeah, well, yeah. The easiest way is, and we're what we kind of a. When I say we do relatively mid-size aerostructures, we don't build large wings for any aircraft, right? You couldn't hardly walk through our factory and pick out something that you said, where does that even belong on the aircraft?
Right.
Some people could, because if you fly a lot or know aircraft, you could, but you couldn't walk through. You're not going to see anything that looks or resembles like an aircraft. It's just going to be components.
Okay.
One of our biggest thing is control surfaces for multiple types of aircraft, primarily Boeing aircraft, but control surfaces, which is spoilers, ailerons, flaps, all those things. That's kind of in our wheelhouse. And then engine cowlings and things like that we do. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So engine cowlings. So like I said, you can walk through, but we do take a raw material, which is basically rolled carbon fiber, and it goes through an entire manufacturing process where when it leaves here, if you've ever flown on a 777 aircraft and looked out on the wing and it moved, we built it here in Milledgeville. So
that's super
wings,
cool.
Yeah, so
that's super cool.
I mean, some leave here with all the components. Like I said, it's ready to go on the aircraft, and some are just components of a larger assembly that we send to other customers.
Right. Okay. God, either way, that's impressive. Everybody. Nowadays, especially, I mean, flying an airplane or whatever, or not flying an airplane. I mean, I'm not going to get in there and fly it, but getting on an airplane, I mean, it's almost the norm for travel anyway nowadays. If you're getting from A to B, I mean, long distances, even here in the United States, you're still going to jump on a plane and kind of get going wherever you're going to go. But anyway, so back to machines again. I mean, that's kind of what we're, maintenance and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So, what's your standard operating procedure whenever something does go down? I think you said earlier about you do everything via computer, and you've got a maintenance or an alert system, so to speak. How does that all work out? Let's just say one of your spindle goes down. How do you know?
Right, everything's controlled through our CMMS, so it's basically an asset management system. So kind of looking at it from a pyramids, set up. The assets at the very top of that pyramid, and everything we do below that is to maintain that asset, right? To do the things that we need to do to keep that asset reliable. So when we do have any type of critical maintenance that comes up, a downtime that's associated with an outage, there's a couple different ways. Obviously, with cell phones, we can get a phone call. From one of our customers, internal customers, say this machine's down. We always ask for a work order, right? So that's how we track our systems.
Right.
So we've got it set up where they can go through an email system, type an email in. Our subject matter expert for the work order system, our planner grabs that email and says, okay, here's what's going on. Let me issue a work order in the system. We get an automated email from that, especially on critical assets. I don't care if she calls in a restroom that needs to be worked on, but if we have a critical asset that is down, myself, our lead, and her, the customer would get an email from the system saying, hey, this work order was generated for this issue. And then we would be notified, that way. Now, if it's something, life safety or something like that, obviously we're getting a phone call. But
Right.
if it's just a down piece of equipment, the system generates a work order through through our SME, our planner. That gets taken care of. We then either immediately go to it, because generally speaking, a critical asset that's down is probably one of the most things, unless we're working on something more important or another piece that's down. But we track that work order from the time it's issued. Make sure we get down to the equipment. We track our response time, how quick we get there. So the mean time to repair, we track in this system as well. So how quick from the time the work order was generated till the time the asset was put back in service. We've got a KPI for our uptime. So every critical asset is tracked from an uptime standpoint. How many hours for the month was this asset down? Was it recurring? Was this the same issue? Are we seeing very similar issues? So we're able to use that data not only to respond to the immediate issue, but then go in history and start pulling that data so we can make ourselves better, right? So we're looking at repetitive failures. What can we do different to keep those failures from happening?
Right.
It's my goal, as the manager over the equipment, is to never have our customer call. I know it's kind
Correct,
of a lofty goal, but during our preventive maintenance activities, my technicians or our technicians find those issues before they become an issue for the operator. That's really our goal, being more proactive
Yeah.
than we are reactive. That's really where we're headed on our reliability centered maintenance path.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's truly what it sounds like. It sounds like that's really one heck of a system that gives you the word before the proverbial shit hits the fan. You know what I mean?
No, I'm with you. And we're able.
Everybody hates it when that happens.
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? Yep.
Well, speaking of that, what was your hero moment, in your opinion, when the proverbial shit hit the fan?
Well, which time?
Yeah, right. How about we say this week?
Probably
Right?
good. I mean,
seems like
I'll just give you a prime example. One thing you don't really, in the carbon fiber world, there's so many parameters that we're held within, right? So we get that material out of the freezer. It has to go in what's called a clean room, right? So you have to build this part in the clean room. You're held to a standard on temperature, humidity, particle count, positive pressure, all those things inside that clean room. We had an instance this week where they started getting a little contamination in the room. We had to shut them down, go troubleshoot what was going on, get them cleaned up, figure out what was going on, isolate it. So things like that just happen, on a daily basis sometimes. We do a really good job to maintain and keep things running, and I got a lot of preventive maintenance in place to prevent it. So every once in a while you'll get something like that to happen, though. Really our biggest challenge, or at least my biggest challenge, is obsolescence of equipment, right? Because we're an older facility. We've been here since 1975. We've got some older equipment, but even in that, even the newer equipment, becomes obsolescence much faster now because technology just advances and changes so fast.
It's absolutely wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, even when it comes to some of this, the 3D printing stuff, I mean, that's just where, the materials that they're using, the way that they're doing it, the accuracy that they're able to achieve now. I mean, it truly feels like it keeps getting better and better and better, which of course, for us machining guys, we're kind of like,
Right.
We're puckering up a little bit.
Oh yeah, no, and I hadn't really thought about it, but you're right, Martin. For what you guys do, I mean, you're just all over subtractive manufacturing, right? You take something and make it smaller in the shape you need it, whereas additive manufacturing, starting from up and building it to really close tolerance. So that's actually a very good point I hadn't even considered.
You know what? And I've never had it actually I've never heard it been put the way you just put it.
Yeah.
Just taking the material and taking away from the material, and then additive material is where you're just.
At the end of the day, that's what you're doing, right? You're either doing subtractive manufacturing or you're doing additive manufacturing, or a combination of both. Because we use both here. We've got a 3D printer. It's a relatively small unit, and what you can do is get, like you said, really, really close to that tolerance where you don't have so much machining to do like you would out of an aluminum block or even composite or something. Something you were using to build a component. By removing material. So, and that technology is advancing so fast to where you just can't keep up, to the point we were talking about obsolescence. The the future of equipment is just so wide open. I'm looking into, you know, AI for our equipment, right? What does that
Yeah.
even look like going forward? I've envisioned 3, 4, 5 years down from the road. I don't even have a system that tells me when to go maintenance. The machine tells me when it's due. Tells me
Right.
exactly what to go do. I get a notification from the equipment says this is due. Here's what has to happen, and here's what you need to do it. That's where this is headed. So but advances so fast.
Golly. So, so when one of your spindle goes down, right? Because
Yep.
we've helped you out with those a couple of times.
Yeah,
With one of your
many
spindle,
times in the past.
right? So when one of those goes down, I mean, like, does that again, back to your system? The system notifies you, hey, spindle's
Yeah,
vibrating,
well,
making noise, getting hot,
generally,
whatever.
yeah, generally speaking, on a situation like that, because we do at a max a quarterly inspection of that equipment, but sometimes even annually, I mean monthly, or even just a little more. So you figure 6, 12 week inspections we're doing. It's very seldom. I mean, you're a spindle guy. It's very seldom that it just fails immediate, right? You're going to have
Correct. Yep.
some indication that tells you, hey, this is going to fail. So that's part of
They
that.
usually are correct.
Yeah, that's part of that P to F curve, right? So the performance
Yep.
curve of a piece of equipment, or any failure mode with that equipment. That's why we do preventive maintenance, right? So we can catch that. So, okay, the temperature and or sound of this spindle is not where it should be. We know we're going to have an imminent failure within within expected X 6 weeks, or whatever that number is.
Mhm.
We would then be able to schedule that rebuild, right? So we
Okay.
would have a spare in stock. We would put it in, take the old one out, box it up, send it to you guys for repair. And that saves time, money. Our downtime is then scheduled. It doesn't change the amount of uptime or downtime you have, but it
Right.
does give you an opportunity to schedule that downtime.
Right.
It's not always the case, but the majority of the time, a spindle gives you some indication prior to a catastrophic or full failure.
Correct. Correct. And you said you usually have a backup spindles for for most of your machines,
Yes.
or
So yeah, and that's an interesting point. So one thing we've done over the last 12, 15 years, as we were upgrading NC equipment, one of the things we put in spec was make sure all the equipment, if at all possible, had the same spindle. So we went with a certain spindle with a certain cartridge. So
yep.
now I've got 2 spares on the shelf that fit literally
Nice.
7 pieces of equipment, which
Ah,
keeps me from having so many spares, right? And
correct.
it makes it standard. So a
Yep.
replacement of one is the same replacement for the other 8, which is good for my technicians. There's not a big learning curve there. Once they figured out one and can get it done, they just move along to the next. The alignments are very similar, so it just makes it a lot easier for me. It's not always the case, as we do have some older stuff. You've
Sure.
put your hands on most of my spindles, so we've got some of the older stuff that's not part of that common over the last 10, 12 years, but most of them are, and
Yeah.
it minimizes the spares we have.
You'd be surprised how many times I've talked to customers or clients, potential clients, however you want to, round about it. But having a spare or having 2 spares or something along those lines, we even do with even the smaller spindles that we deal with. I mean, let's give it a high dollar amount. Let's say it's a $14,000 investment,
Right.
but you've got that one spindle sitting on the side. Well, whenever you got a machine that crashes or machine that goes down, well, all of a sudden then you're, hooting and hollering because, well,
Right.
when you're not producing something, then you're not making money. So in
That's
other words,
exactly
that thing's
right.
costing you money and not making you money. So it
Yep.
takes a quick, I mean, it goes against a one-way street, which is not usually what you want. So
That's exactly right.
yeah,
Yep. And those are the things we have to manage, right? And
correct.
try to
Yep.
stay out ahead of, because I mean, you hit the nail on the head there, right? So at what point do you need to maintain stock on an item? Where a spindle obviously is just that's a no-brainer,
It's a
right? I have
tool,
to have a
right?
spare spindle because
Right.
it's not something I can turn around. And lead
Correct.
time becomes the biggest factor in that, right?
Yep.
I mean, I have to call you guys sometimes, Shane, and some of your team there, and say, hey, I need you to work miracles on this one, brother. I need this thing turned
Yeah.
around. He said, let me see what I can do. And that's just what you guys do sometimes. Generally speaking, though, I'm able to send this to out and hey, you got plenty of time on it. Let's get it evaluated, get it repaired, and get it back to me because I did have a spare.
Yeah.
But lead time, and then back to our original discussion, is obsolescence of that as well. Is making sure, and it's changes so fast to where things that you could get readily, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, now are not as readily available. And we have to maintain that. We have to stay on top of that, and it's very hard to do. It's very hard.
Yeah. Everybody's doing the what is it? Skeleton, not maintenance, but skeleton. The lean.
Yep.
Yeah. Lean inventory.
Yes,
lean
exactly
inventory.
right.
So that way, they don't want a whole lot of overhead, this, that, and the other, which I mean, I get that to a degree.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
At the same time, like you said, part of being the manager and the maintenance crew is you've got to be able to juggle those two things and figure out exactly what is what's the sweet spot. And there's a lot of customers that don't do that.
Yeah. Optimum level based on lead time. And it's very critical to have a person in place for your stock room that knows those things and is able to stay out in front of those. That's one thing I do have. I've got a stockroom person that keeps their head on those things and lets me know when we're having issues, and so it helps a lot, right? But again, if you just don't know, you don't know until you need it again, right?
Correct.
I want to stay out ahead of that, but it's not always possible.
Yeah, nail on the head right there. Well, let's change this up a little bit. Let's make it a little bit fun questions here. So here's a good one that I always like to ask, or that I've thought about. That would be, again, we're the first time go around, but I've liked this question was, what do people outside, in your opinion, what do people outside of what we do on a day-to-day basis, maintenance manager, what is it that they don't understand you think that would just, when you tell them what you do, what just blows their mind? They're like, wait a minute, you do what? And that does what?
Well, I think for me, it's more about the advanced technology that we have here. I mean, we're a relatively small community, 90 miles from Atlanta. You drive by, you see the front of the building, doesn't look like too much, and if you were to walk through and see the amount of technology that we have in this factory and the things that we do on a daily basis would surprise, I think, anybody that doesn't know the processes. I mean, you just people don't understand, what we do on a daily basis and the challenges that we run across, right? Troubleshooting things, just millions and millions of dollars of a piece of equipment that is just so advanced in technology. It's hard to stay on top of it, but I think that would be surprising to
right.
people.
And the cool part about it is, again, you're making parts to something that they sit in on and relax in as they go travel, who knows where, to go enjoy their vacation or whatnot. Well, right. I mean, it's I've thought about this 100 times too. What do you do, Martin? Well, we fix spindles. So, okay, well, what does a spindle do? Well, just about everything that you use, that you touch on a day-to-day basis, usually has a spindle touched it before you. It's right. From circuit boards to telephones to your glasses to your cell phone to your computer. It's just, the list is just,
you name it. Yeah.
It's endless, and most people don't realize that.
Well, and you're right, they don't, and it's kind of, you can look at it a couple different ways, but any company such as yours, right, that rebuilds spindles, if you've got that specialty, that expertise, you have that for a reason, because I certainly can't do it, right? I could probably go try it, but there's so much
intricacies,
technology, right? There's just so much experience that goes into rebuilding a spindle. There's a craft to doing that. There's no question about it. That's why we send those out. If it was easy to rebuild a spindle, I'd be doing them in my shop myself.
Right.
You know that, but there is a craft. The technicians that do that and put their hands on that spindle, and you're right, that would be surprising to anybody. Not only what they do, but just what it takes to get that thing from the condition I sent it to you in to back to at or better than OEM standards is a lot to it. There's just a lot to it, and it's like I said, it's intricate work. It's very detailed and precise work, and you got to be really good at it. No question.
So since being the head of all of this maintenance and the building and all the different parts that you take care of and everything else, what do you do to decompress? What is your hobby? What is What's
Oh,
your,
man.
hey, I'm out of here, I'm gonna go fishing, or
Well,
what you got going on?
you hit the nail on the head. I spend probably way too many hours fishing, and I
Uh,
don't think that.
Is, yeah,
But
what I
if
was
you
about
ask
to
my
say is
wife,
like,
if you ask
is
my
that a
wife, she
possible
would.
thing to say? There's too
Yeah,
many
well, if
hours
you ask my
fishing?
wife, I think she would say yes. If you ask me, I would say no. But yeah, I mean, I'm fortunate enough to we've got a pretty good sized lake here in town, and I actually have a place on the lake. So, I mean, it's so easy for me just to walk down, jump in a boat, and go. I mean, I went for 2.5 hours yesterday afternoon. I
Oh,
mean,
that's awesome.
that's just kind of my thing. I love to get out on the water, put a rod in my hand, and spend 90% of that just bass fishing. So it's kind of a challenge, which I kind of like a challenge. So you go out there and figure those things out and,
Yep.
and figure out where they are and how to catch them. So that's my decompression, is getting on that water and getting the boat and try to catch fish.
Yeah, I hear that. Hey, you know what? I've done my fair share of fishing, deep sea fishing, river fishing, pond
Yeah.
fishing, lake fishing, whatever. I've done my fair share of it in my life, but
Yeah.
there's there's a sense of tranquility,
Oh, no
or
doubt.
just, you know, what is it from Bad Boys? Woosah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, just get out and be able to
Yeah.
relax and enjoy it and everything else. Yep, I'm there with you. I'm there
Yeah.
with you.
That's good. That is a
Well,
good.
hey, I appreciate it and everything
Yeah.
else. I think
No, I
we've
think
kind
we're
of
good,
gone
Martin.
through
I
all this
appreciate.
stuff.
Look, I
Um,
appreciate you inviting me on, spend some time with you and going through some things. I mean, I'm very passionate about maintenance and facilities and what we do here. So, anytime, just let me know, and I'd love to be back on.
sounds outstanding. Well, we might just actually get you back on here then pretty soon.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks for listening to Maintenance and Manufacturing Insights with Martin Engster. Want to be featured on the show? Head over to maintenancemanufacturinginsights.com/guest to apply and share your story with the industry.